Hello, hello, hello. Welcome, welcome, welcome. It's beautiful to be here. It's beautiful to see those of you who are here joining live. And whether you're joining live or watching the replay, absolutely, I welcome you to join in the conversation. Share your experiences in the comments, share your questions in the comments. Engage in the way that makes it relevant for your life right now. Again, if you're watching the replay, you can always let me know you're watching the replay. If you're here live, I'd love to see your little faces pop up. I always love to see where are you joining from, where are you at, and welcome, welcome, welcome. Definitely join in the conversation with your comments, with your shares, with your questions. And let's dive into this really juicy topic that is dating, sex, intimacy. It's funny. I actually have a number of, I have clients. I also have people in my lives. I have friends, men, women, who are on dating journeys right now. And I think these are particularly interesting times to be dating and relating. And I sort of anything I ever write, I made the title about creating the rules for dating and relationship. And in one way, I want to talk about how that is right now, right? During the time of a pandemic, during lots of change, and often what I like to call topsy-turvy times. And the dirty little secret about all of this is that it's actually always been up for grabs to choose to actually create the rules for dating, to create the rules for relationship. And there are so many things about 2020 where we're like, oh my God, in 2020, fill in the blank. And we get to decide it's 2020. We get to choose, we're in a pandemic. Let's and it's like, actually, I always want to lean in and whisper, actually, it's always been like that. And I think, again, like so many things, a lot of our experiences in 2020 have actually just pulled back the curtain or laid bare things that have always been true. And it's always been true. It's actually always been true that each of us as individuals, and then in our relationships, with another person or with other people, we get to decide what are the rules. What are the rules for dating? I'm sort of laughing because I'm like, I could imagine some of you joining me like, yes. So what are the new rules for dating? What are the new rules for relationship? And both the absolute privilege of it, the freedom of it, the joy of it, the excitement of it, and the burden of it, the responsibility of it is you get to say. Each and every one of you, whether you're dating or you're in a relationship or you're trying to decide about a relationship or you're all these, actually you get to say. I remember there's a couple things about this back in at the end of March or maybe beginning of April here in 2020. And in the United States, most of the women in the No Man Diet last year were in the United States, although a few were international. But really everywhere. I mean, it was a global pandemic. It is a global pandemic. It's also kind of the beauty of things right now is that it's like, oh, this is actually happening for all of us. This is happening for all of us. So, but I remember one of the women on one of our group calls for the No Man Diet that was coming to completion in spring of 2020 had this moment where she was like, but what even, so we were coming to the end of a No Man Diet. So a lot of these women were choosing to step back into dating after having taken this really sacred time of self-reflection and self-inquiry and determining, what do they want in their lives and how do they want to love and be loved. And and diving really deep into that. And she was like, but what even is dating gonna look like now? And I just remember leaning in or having, a group call, and I was like, you get to decide. You are the one who actually gets to say, what is it like to date you now? And so, of course, other people get to choose. It's not like we get to tell people. It's not like, oh, you get to decide how dating goes for everybody else, or even how it goes for the people who want to date you. But if they want to date you, like you do, you get to decide if you want to meet people right off the bat. You get to decide if you want to talk to them on the phone before you meet. You get to decide, do you only meet outdoors? You get to decide if you want to meet people on Zoom before you meet them in person. And this is really true in our relationships as well. I think often once we get in a relationship, we're just like, well, I guess this is the way it is. And we often assume also that that the other person is happy the way it is because it's going that way. Like, well, this is how our relationship is, so I guess this is the way they want it. And we forget, oh no, we get to recreate our relationship on a regular basis also. Like, wait, what kind of relationship do I want to be in? And it's actually one of the reasons that I truly believe a no-man diet is so important for like every woman at some point in her life, is that sometimes it really takes that kind of stepping back to choose, how do I want things to go? Once we're in the relationship or even in the midst of dating, sometimes it's like, wait, I can't tell what I want because things are happening and I'm doing them. And did I like that? And do I not like that? And how do I want it to go? And sometimes it really takes a certain kind of a pause and a breath and the sitting inside of something and really looking. I don't know if we can ever totally look at things objectively when we sit in the midst of our own lives because we're always in it, but sort of that stepping back and getting a little bit more of a panoramic or a bird's eye view and looking at how things have gone for us in the past. How have I done dating in the past? Sometimes we go like, oh, I just attract the same kind of person. Why am I always getting into the same kind of relationships? Or like, well, I want to do it differently, right? We can have these sort of like more abstract and grand sweeping. No.
I already know what's going on.
No, thank you. So anyway, that's my son. He's trying to get off his school Zoom call. But we have these more broad ideas of like, I don't want to do it like that, or I want to attract somebody different, or I want to create a different kind of relationship, or I don't like how that went. But we don't really take the time to go, well, how did that go? And what are all the steps? It's not about like blame, shame, and self-judgment. Like, how did I make that happen? And what do I need to fix about myself so I never do that again? But, well, how did that happen? Like, what were really the steps that led to it going like this? And then when this happened, what happened? And how did I respond to that? And how did I ultimately end up here? Knowing that, again, of course, it's not completely one-sided. The other person is absolutely involved, or the other people, but always there's our response, or whether we set boundaries or we don't set boundaries, and what we say yes to, and did I ask for what I wanted, and did I even know what I wanted, and what did I like and what didn't I like, and maybe in the moment I wasn't able to tell because I was just in it. So again, this like, I like to say we do get to create the rules for dating and relationship now, not just because it's 2020, but like always, we get to create the rules. What are my rules for dating? How do I want it to go? And rules is kind of a funny word around this. They may or may not be rules, but our decisions, like, how do I want this to go? What do I like on dates? What do I like to do? So often also we're stepping into some construct like, well, first you exchange numbers, and then you talk on the phone, and then you go out for coffee, and then you go out to dinner. And by the third date, if you haven't had sex, then ... And who knows, maybe though you're like, well, those aren't my rules. But I would encourage any of you just to check, well, what are the rules? What are the both conscious and unconscious rules that you might have been stepping into or walking along, or sort of bouncing yourself against in your dating and relationship life, again, that you may or may not have fully consciously chosen. Oh, well, I really would like it to go this way, but nobody else is going to want to do that, or they'll think that's weird. I can't ask to blah blah, to go on a 3-hour long hike for our first date. No one will want to do that, and maybe they will, maybe they won't. Like, we don't know. But if we just dismiss these things out of hand, then we set ourselves, we're just like, oh, I can't actually have what I want. So I guess I might as well just do this. And then to remember, the reason I put the in there is that yes, we create them, but actually every step of the journey is another opportunity to recreate, to create again, to go like, but did I, like, here I have this lump of clay that is me and my relationship and how I think I want things to go. And we take our best shot at it. We make our best effort and and we're like, oh, well, I really like this. I really like the way I created this curve here, but there's this part over here I'm not really so sure about. We're not stuck with that. That's the beauty of clay. That's the beauty of relationships, which are dynamic. It's the beauty of being in relationship with ourselves, is that we can allow ourselves to be dynamic, which we already are. So it's like giving ourselves permission to be what we already are. We're already shifting and changing, and both inside ourselves and definitely, absolutely in relationship. Because every time we engage with another human being, already a whole nother realm of infinite possibility opens up. Oh, who am I with them? What do I want with them? What do I want with this person? And again, often it actually does take this kind of stepping back, not so that it's reified and solidified and the other person doesn't matter, but to step back from our habitual cycles of dating. And even before the dating, one of the things that I certainly found on my own no man diet, and then I, regularly over and over, I hear from women. I'll tell them at the beginning that most of us, if not all of us, have some sort of chronic tapes going in the background of like, we're sort of scanning. We're out and we're like, well, what about them? And we catch ourselves, looking like, but do they have a wedding ring? And if they don't, like, does that mean they're not married, or they just don't wear a wedding ring? Or, there's like this chronic, and it takes a lot of energy. It's a lot of our awareness. It's a lot of our attention. It's a lot of our energy. It's a lot of our life force. And then I often get women, they're like, oh, that's not me. Like, I don't do that. And then they actually step into the No Man Diet program and they're like, oh my God, Kendra, I didn't even know. I thought that wasn't me. I thought I had separated myself from that. I thought I was over that. And then when I really stepped into this container and stepped out of these habits and took away, the being on dating apps or the going on dates or the being set up or the time and attention, I started to notice in the background these tapes that were playing and how much of my energy, attention, and life force was still going into this scanning. This, are you my next partner? Are you the next man in my life? Are you my next lover? Are you, ... And this looking for that. And that is a place where we can free our life energy. But a lot of times it does actually take this stepping back and then disentangling ourselves, like detangling all these little places where we're habitually still engaged in these activities. And then from a more clear space going like, well, how do I want it to go going forward? And do I even know? If I'm going to take myself on a date, would I even know what I would most like to do, or how I would most like to spend my time, or what would please me? And then we wonder why, when we're engaging, in some sort of out and about relating or dating or on dating apps or on a date, this idea like why we don't know if we like, do I like this? Do I not like this? Or we just have a chronic, like, I don't like this, but we don't know what we would like more or better, or how we would ever go about shifting and changing it. And so again, we can absolutely, relationship itself is an incredible place for transformation. And a lot of times, taking that step back, pausing, and being willing to set certain things aside for a certain period of time on purpose is essential for actually creating the kind of experiences we want. And to step back into that realm of engaging intimately, romantically, flirting, or in the dating world, and to have even any sense of like, I can now I can see and sense and feel the different textures and flavors, and I can really have a sense, I want a little bit more of this, or I want a little bit less of this, or this is how I would shift it when it starts to go this way, in order to lay the foundation for the kind of relationship I truly want to have in my life, or relationships I truly want to have in my life. So again, I'll come back to this place of, even though I believe it's always been true, it's literally always been true, in all of our lifetimes anyway, that we can always create and we can always recreate the rules, the quote unquote rules, or how we want it to go in dating, in meeting, in relating, in relationship, in intimacy, in sex. There is something profound about the way that 2020 has removed veils, has removed curtains, has removed blinders, has just laid bare so many things that also allows us like a grittier or a more raw experience of like, oh yeah, I really do get to say, actually, like nobody alive today fucking knows how to date during the pandemic. So I get to say, nobody alive today, knows how to be in relationship in the midst of certain pieces of society crumbling in the way that they are, and in the midst of climate change, or in the midst of, mass migrations in this direction or that direction. Like nobody alive today knows. So I guess I get to say how I want it to go for me. And so again, even though in some way, this was true in 2019 and 2018 and back in 2000 and 1999. We are, I don't know, privileged might be the wrong word, but like, how lucky are we that so many of these masks have been ripped off this year, so that it's more obvious to us than to many other people in previous years or decades of our life, where we're like, I really do get to say it. I get to create the rules. That person over there, they can choose how they want to date, and I could be dating completely differently. Or I could be inspired by some way that they're doing it. Like, I think, again, at the beginning of shelter in place and stay home measures in the United States, there was like this beautiful story in New York about two people whose buildings were close to each other, and one of them sent a drone over with a message, and they started like distance dating on their rooftops in New York. And who knows where they are today? But that thing of like, at another time in our lives, at another time in history, that might not have worked, or that might not have seemed like a possibility, or that whoever that person was that sent the drone with the message over, they might have stopped. They would have like, this is weird, or I'm not allowed to do that, or that's not how people date or meet each other. And then because of the circumstances that were so in, late March, early April of 2020, it was like, why not? Like, what is there to lose? And this is one of the things that I've said to people for the past 20 years even, but we can see it so clearly now, is I'll often say, like, a first date, there is no better time to be more authentically yourself, and to, I don't mean more clear about what you want in relationship, like, rolling out your list and telling them like, this is what I'm looking for and this is how the relationship has to go. But I mean more just like, I don't really want to talk about this. What I'd love to talk about is this, or sharing something that might seem vulnerable to share, or just being like radically yourself. There's actually no better time than a first date, because there's literally nothing to lose. It gets, honestly, we think we're like, oh, it'll get easier and easier to be authentically myself as the relationship progresses. But in a lot of ways, it gets harder and harder because we're like, oh, now it matters whether this continues or ends, or now I've gotten hooked in, or now we're in habit patterns, or now, these things. And like on a first date, I mean, there doesn't need to be any defensiveness around it. There's, obviously don't be rude on a first date, but like, there's really no better time to be like, yeah, like this is the kind of weird person I am. What kind of weird person are you? Let's see if like our weird people want to keep being together. The kind of weird that you are and the kind of weird that I am, because I know we're all a little weird. And if you don't know that already, let me just tell you, because I have gotten to hear like the deep, dark secrets of thousands upon thousands upon thousands of people over the last 20 years. And everyone, like literally everyone, is super normal and super weird at the same time. So the other thing that I really think is important right now about how we get to create and recreate around dating, sex, intimacy, relationship right now is that, or why it's really important, why actually right now is an essential time to do that, is that it is a time when actually, like, these almost seem at odds with each other, but I think that they go together. That at the same time that there's all these masks being kind of ripped off, or we're, have our eyes wide open around like, wait, maybe nobody knows what they're doing, or like the rules are changing. So maybe I really do get to create them for myself. But at the same time, we're still in this space where it can seem like a lot of the rules are being set upon us. And so once again, it's imperative, it's essential that we take the time to go, wait, how do I want to do it? When they're saying like, well, I guess I just can't see people in person at all because COVID, going like, okay, but how can I do it in a way that works for me? How can I do this in a way that honors the reality of COVID as an actual virus that exists? And also that I'm going to be alive during this time, and I'm going to meet people, and we're going to find a way to make this work together. And that it's a time in our lives, it's a time in our lives when it can seem as though many of the rules are being set for us. And so once again, it's actually a really valuable time to take a step back, take that breath, take that pause, set aside certain habits or ways that we might have done things for a long time, and really go like, okay, if I get to choose, and you do, how do I want to choose to do this? If I look around and I actually take into consideration, the reality of how things are right now, the structure of my life, the way things are, like what's actually happening, who else is in my life, and how I want it to go, how do I want to set this up going forward? And when we're caught in the ongoingness of life and dating and seeking and relationship, it can be challenging to recreate it. That a lot of times actually that step back is really essential. And so again, back in like March and April, I had a lot of people they were like, oh my God, Kendra, you should totally run a no man diet right now. This is like the perfect time. Nobody can date anyway. And I remember thinking like, that's not the point. That's not the point of a no man diet. You're like, I guess I can't leave my house, so I'm on a no man diet. The point of a no man diet is that it is consciously chosen. Is that we say, you know what, I could date right now. I could be on dating apps. I can have lovers. Like I can find ways to make this work. And that is absolutely true. Even in places it's challenging. There are definitely places in the world that are actually on like shutdown and lockdown. And, like that story, and if that story in New York tells us anything, it's like, you could like drone date somebody. You can have Zoom dates. Like we have the technology to just do just about anything these days. And inside of all of that choice, to go, oh, actually, I choose to step back and set certain things aside for a certain period of time on purpose. Not because I think I can't date right now, or or I'm, rejecting that in some way, but like, oh, because I'm going to take this time for myself to truly choose, to truly create, and to truly recreate my own rules for how I want to be in relationship, for to get to know myself during this time. And again, I think this time of a lot of change, this time of a fair bit of upheaval for a lot of the world, this time when things are shifting, these times when it can seem like some of the rules are imposed upon us, is the perfect time to go, how do I want to relate? Who am I going to be in the midst of this? And how will I even know if I haven't truly stepped back, taken the time, set aside certain habits? And for many of us, again, a lot of those habits are around the ways that we relate to the people that we're hoping we're either going to have sex with or get married to, be intimate with in some way, create some sort of relationship, that we're like, oh, we all of us. I mean, I see so very few people who don't have a lifetime of habits around this. And it's powerful, deep stuff. So it makes sense. It's normal. There's nothing wrong with you if you have habits around that. But for all of us, it's important that we have these kind of, and that's what everyone was talking about with shelter in place back in March, right? The sacred pause. Well, I say, like, what about a sacred pause that you truly choose for yourself, not, governmentally or virus-driven sort of imposed pause, but no. I choose a pause for myself right now at this pivotal time in my life and this pivotal time in our history as humans and in the world, to step back and take this time for myself to get really curious about who am I and what do I want and how do I love myself really well, and how would I even know, and how would I even show someone else or tell someone else or share or reveal to someone else how to love me really well, and how do I know how to love them? Like, how do I get curious about that? And so as much as I think, I chose the name No Man Diet, slightly tongue-in-cheek, it's almost like clickbaity, right? It's like, oh, that sounds interesting. But as much as that seems like it's really about almost the antithesis of relationship, it's actually some of the most deep relational work you'll ever do, is to consciously set aside certain kinds of relational habits. And often, not always, but often we actually really do need to take a deep pause to do that. That when we're in the habit, it's not impossible, but it's a very challenging time to go, like, I'm going to change this habit while I do it. But to go, oh, I'm actually going to set that aside, consciously chosen, for myself, for my future relationships, for the benefit of everyone in my life as well as myself. Like, I'm going to set those habits completely aside in order even to see some of those habits that are running in the background that I wasn't even aware of, where I might still be scanning for who's my next partner, who's my next lover, is that one married? Is that one not married? Will they, and go, oh, no, what would I do with that time, with that attention, with that life force, if it wasn't chronically and habitually being sent out into the world without my conscious choice? And I think often, again, it's hard. We go, like, if we talk about habits, we think, oh, so it's better just not to do that. And for me, it's always about choice. So great, if you can actually take that kind of a step back and be able to relax those habits, then you can actually step into the world and be like, all right, I'm going to sit in this park and I'm going to scan, I'm going to choose, but I'm going to do it on purpose. I know that I'm doing it. I'm actually looking, I'm conscious of what I'm doing. I'm aware of what's attracting me and why and what I'm thinking. And, and I have my own choice around it. It's like alcoholics who always say but I could stop anytime, right? Like I'm not going to right now, but I could. And we don't really know unless we actually go, whether it's again with alcohol, with drugs, with social media, with sugar, with like all the kinds of things that hook us in, or different kinds of sex, intimacy, dating, and relationship. Again, it's one of those really challenging ones that just hook us real deep. And taking that kind of a truly consciously chosen sacred pause where we say, this might be exactly how I want to relate in the future. But you know how I'm going to find out? I'm going to find out by setting it aside on purpose as a choice for a certain period of time so that I can see what happens when I don't do that. Who am I when I'm not doing that? Where do I put my time and attention and energy when it's not put in this domain? And discover who we are inside of that. And inside of that, we get to truly choose like, beyond my habits, beyond my chronic ways of relating, beyond my habitual ways of relating, how do I want to relate? Again, whether it's romantically, sexually, intimately, or just in a conversation, like how do I actually want to relate in this conversation? How do I want to breathe? How do I want to be? Where do I want to be? How long do I want it to go on for? What do I want to talk about? How do I want to be spoken to? What kind of questions do I want to ask? Most of us really need to take a step back in order to discover the answers to those questions about ourselves. And then, of course, it's just lifetime work. So I truly believe that now is probably one of the best times ever to do conscious work around our dating, around our sex, around our intimacy, around our relationships. And that one of the profound ways that we can do that, or that I offer for women, is a no-man diet, and be able to actually step back from that. And in that way, really choose. Like there are no rules. Nobody alive today has done this before. And again, that's always been true. It's actually always been true that nobody has ever been you trying to date before. And nobody has ever been you dating that person or being in a relationship with that person. So it's always been true. But there's something really distinct about the clarity we have about that here. Like October of I guess we're in November of 2020, where we've seen, from March till now, like, actually things really can change, and things that we thought were totally set in the world are not totally set. Everyone who thought they had to go to the office, from 9 to 5 or 8 to 5, like we're like for 20 years I did that, and then suddenly didn't, what are these rules? All the rules are up for grabs, and that includes dating, intimacy, relationship, sex. Like, how do you want it to go? So to me, that's exciting. That's the game that I like to play. And the No Man Diet is one of my absolutely favorite programs. It's some of the deepest work you'll ever do. And if any of you feel called to do this, we're in early registration right now. It's going to close on November 13th. So there's a limited amount of time, and then registration is going to close completely until I think mid-December. So it's for the next week and a half. It's a great time. You save $400. I'm offering an extra bonus call. Just a second left. And so anyway, there's lots of reasons to join early. Also, one of the dirty little secrets about the No Man Diet is I lead it for 12 weeks, but almost every woman that joins the No Man Diet is at some point says to me, Kendra, this should really be a 6-month-long program. And I'm like, I know, but you wouldn't have joined if I'd said 6 months right out the bat. So those of you who make the bold choice to join now actually get to be inside the container, however you choose for that to go, for a longer period of time, doing this beautiful, beautiful deep work as we head into these darker months in the Northern Hemisphere, as we go into a lot of the holidays, as it gets cold again here in the Northern Hemisphere. And I would love to work with you in that way. It's a beautiful time to do it. Ciao.
I've been Michael for an hour and we're just practicing the